Hi folks, so here we are in the Pinto Caravan restoration. Just thought I'd catch up with where I am here. Now this all started with the ceiling and just taking care of a bit of mold on the ceiling, and I'll talk to you about that in another video. You really want to do something about the ceilings and these things, and I'll tell you why in another video. But anyway, so there are a few leaks that that would show up down along the paneling down here. You'd notice sometimes the squabs would be a bit damp in a bit of a rainstorm and things. So I thought I'd pull the paneling off down here and have a look. And of course, this is what I find. You've got basically rot. There's a piece of wood that runs right along the base here, which the paneling is attached to. This is attached to the fiberglass shelf that comes out this way, and and a piece of metal down at the back, and then the paneling is attached there, and it's tucked up under this rail. Now this rail is very important. This is where all the problems lie, right here. One of the biggest issues, of course, is they built them fast. They built them well. I mean, considering this is 34 years old. The biggest problem is that they used rivets. Rivets in some places are fine, but you'll see that in places like here, and you may not be able to see that very well, but you know, on these angle pieces here, you'll see they've got screws up here, and then stainless steel rivets down into the through this metal, and then down into the alloy channel. So and they've also used rivets. That's my patch. They've also used rivets here in the fiberglass, and rivets are great, except where there's potentially a lot of movement, and particularly if it's fiberglass. You can see here that's what's happening is it basically slowly starts pulling its way out. The other big problem with rivets, of course, when they're you know, this is inconvenient, but it's all on the inside. The problem with a rivet when it perforates your exterior wall, where there might be water on the outside, is that the central pin, once it falls out, provides a perfect hole for water to come in. So it's just really a bad idea, and of course they used rivets everywhere. Basically, this this alloy piece here is not only is that metal angle piece riveted down to the top, this is riveted both into the fiberglass and the alloy side. This is where the problems occur. You can see here's a leak. Here's a leak trail here. Comes up. You follow it up. You may not be able to see up under there. You follow it up, but you can see it basically ends up where it's leaking out past that bit of alloy. Now this piece of alloy is really important. This is basically what holds the top to to what I call the boat. Future videos you'll hear me talk about the boat, because it's all fiberglass, it's completely sealed, so I call it the boat. So basically any weakness in this alloy and how it's attached is going to create all sorts of problems, the least of which is water. The greater of which is a failure of structural integrity. Now, in these old Pintos, I can tell you from experience, and I'll give you that on another video, is they also used very large rivets to attach the floor. They attached the floor to the frame through some particle board on the floor. If you have an old Liteweight or Pinto, I strongly suggest that you go out there, and while the frame is in a situation where it can't move, that you push and lift on the boat part of the caravan and see if you see any movement between it and the frame. Mine, this one here, had started to separate, and had it kept going, basically the entire top would have just lifted just completely off the frame. Anyway, subject of another video. So the biggest problem with these rivets as well is, of course, it makes dismantling this thing an absolute nightmare. You can't just undo some screws. You can have a lot of screws too. Speaking of all these different screws, there's lots of different kinds. Grab some Ziploc bags and label them up so you know where they all go, because they all use different ones. You're probably going to want to use oversized ones anyway when you come to put this back together. But at least initially you'll be able to from the old ones, you'll be able to tell how long they are. And you really don't want any of them too long, because of course these ones on the side, if you end up buying, say, oh, well, it doesn't matter if they're a couple of millimeters too long. Well, yeah, it might, because you might find that you end up perforating the outside. So here you have, this is in the back left rear corner. You see you've got rivet and a rivet and a rivet and a rivet here, and screws. Now these rivets are a pain. The easiest way I've found to take them out is with a good flat chisel. Not I mean, you could use a wood chisel, an old wood chisel that's sharpened up, but I found this is actually a basically a metalworking chisel. Get one of these, sharpen it up, and then basically what you want to do is hit it a few times here. You can either pop this top off, and I'll show you this in another video. You can pop this top off and clean those up. Come underneath, get the bottom of the rivet, clean that up, and then with a with basically a center punch or a nail set, you can drive the rivet down through and clean that up. When I put this back together, these are all going to be screwed together. The other bad thing about rivets, of course, is as they move, you can't tighten them up. Once anything starts to loosen, that's it, you're done. The only way you can deal with it is pop the rivet out and put a screw in. Well, I'm just going to put screws back in here, slightly oversized screws. That way, you know, on an annual basis, I can just run around and tighten everything up. Because, you know, caravan's not like a house. It's on the road, it's bouncing around. We take ours on some fairly rough roads, and so things just, you know, slowly loosen up. So you really want to be able to retighten them if you can. So that's kind of where we are. So I'm going to end up replacing the piece of wood that runs entirely along the bottom here. I'm going to end up replacing this in here, and possibly this upright along the window, and probably that one there. When I peel this paneling off, I'll have a look at these uprights. Now these are all these bits of wood were, they're not now here, but all these bits of wood were actually glued to the outside skin. So you really kind of want that, otherwise these things start flopping around kind of loose. Obviously I'm going to have to come clear back here. The other thing I'm going to do is at these joins, because of course I'm not building this from scratch, so I can't make this frame and then lay it in. If I decide to keep this piece of wood, what I'll do is cut it flush right there, and then I'll glue that and also run an angled gusset on either side to strengthen up these corners, and that'll keep some of this flex that way from coming out, and same over in this corner here. I've started on the left side. It was the side that had the worst leaks, and it's also the hardest side because it has all the junk on it. It's got the cupboards up on top, it's got the sink and all that kind of stuff. Sink, no trouble to take out. That comes out really easily, and you can see it sitting over there in one piece. Don't even have to bother taking the top off. I'm going to do it in two halves. I'm going to do this half and then move everything back over here and then do the other half. Taking this off because it has all the wiring, the 240 wiring and the 12-volt wiring, it's a bit more of a mess. So remember, once you take this off, unless you're a registered electrician, you're going to need to have somebody look at all this stuff and tidy it back up. So I mean, even all this isn't too hard, but this this wire running back through the wall down to this plug, which we hardly ever use, so I'm thinking I might just get rid of that plug. We never need that. So it's always easy to put another one in, or just run a small external extension if you need to from these plugs up here. So that's about where we're at, and I'll keep you updated semi-regularly as I go along. All of these bits of wood I will be replacing with heart macrocarpa rather than treated pine, mainly because heart macrocarpa has the same rot resistance as 3.2 treated pine. That way I'm not using it. I'm also not using any poison timber in here. The other thing is that the macrocarpa being finer grained material, the screws will generally tend to hold quite a bit better. Although there's a bit of problem with splitting, we'll have to gently probably pilot drill all the screw holes, but that's no big deal. We don't really care about that. For the amount of work that's in here, pilot drilling a few screw holes is no big deal. I'm going to pop around to the outside now, and I'm going to show you where some of these leaks are coming from.